Hi, my name's Allie Hansen. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for tuning in today. So, my talk is called I Started an LLC from My Bed, and So Can You. It's kind of a funny story, so I'll just give you some background. But before we dive in, I just want to let you know the very typical um, covering my behind. So, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant, I'm not in insurance or a financial person or HR. So none of this presentation, or if we talk afterwards, please don't take it as legal or professional advice. And I just also want to caveat that this presentation and my process, it's not a perfect thing. I learned a lot of lessons along the way. And also, I'm extremely blessed in a lot of different ways, and we're all different. And so your journey through this, should you decide to try, uh, will probably be different, and that's good, and that's okay. And then just very, last thing, feel free to DM me anytime. It's Hey Allie Hansen on Twitter. So with all of the formalities out of the way, let's get started. So, first things first, I started an LLC for my bed. It might sound kind of like an interesting title, and it's actually true. So, let's see. I can't believe it's still 2020. Somehow it is. And in the beginning of the year, um, I was kind of so burnt out from my work. And I was really, I was always a high achiever. And I found myself at a really low point, just in general in my life. And, I was burnt out mentally, physically, emotionally, which is really, really a difficult thing. And I had never really reached that level of burnout before. And I hope that none of you listening get to that point, because it's truly devastating. And I was just drained and disintegrated, really to my core. And so it was like there was nights I went to sleep, and I really was so exhausted that I was not 100% confident that I would even wake up from that sleep. It was a really scary time in my life, and I would wake up in the morning, luckily, and I would just be so angry and so frustrated. Like as soon as I opened my eyes, and I knew that something had to change, and that was just not a healthy way to be living my life. And so basically, the title of this talk, I started an LLC from my bed, and so can you. It's actually true, right? So I stayed for about 2 weeks straight. I kind of just stayed in bed, and then slept and recovered. And then slowly but surely, I started to think about my next moves, and I started to think about what steps I needed to take to get there. And sometimes it was just really sending like one email a day or researching one topic a day. And I would consider that a success for that day. And so I took it very slow and steady. And I guess that's, one of the reasons, in addition to, so you'll see there's like a little cell phone icon on the screen. And I did most of this for like basically 6 or 7 weeks, all of this planning and creation. I literally did it on my cell phone, and my cell phone is actually cracked. So pretty much the worst type of situations you can think of for like trying to start a company. So that's why I say, if I can do it, I think you guys can too. So a little bit of background on how that all came to be. So, I guess the first thing that you would want to think about is, what do you want to do, right? It's kind of obvious, but you need to think about, what business, or what do you want to do, or what service or product, right? And you probably, you might have an inclination of that already, like depending upon your background and your experience and what you want to do. For me, I already kind of knew what I wanted to do, and that was to provide a consulting service. And so I kind of already knew what I was going to do. It wasn't like I had to, create a tool or, make an actual physical invention or anything like that, right? So for me, that was kind of easy. And I'd be, very happy to talk with you guys about sort of the creation of your idea and what you want to do if that's something that you need help with. So for me, I already kind of knew, and I had done a lot of informal research, sort of in formulating what I was going to do, with whom, to whom, everything. And again, we could talk about that ad nauseum in terms of like, sort of market research and things like that if you needed to. But for me, I kind of knew I had a good idea of what I was going to do was pretty needed. So after you kind of figure out what you want to do, there's a few things for me that I had to really consider and go through. So the first thing is money. The second thing is timing. And the third thing was like contracts and legal considerations. And your situation might be very different. And again, this is just, my story and my journey. So these are the three main things that, before I really got started, I decided I need to figure out these three areas. So the first thing, how am I going to get money to, just give myself a little cushion to live on and to pay whatever these expenses are that are going to come up, because I didn't even know. And, there was really nothing online, on any of those entrepreneur websites or business websites. Like nothing was actually really helpful. And that's why I'm hoping this is going to help you all. And in a way that maybe you can't find online, just the real answers or a real checklist or real considerations. So that's my hope here. So anyway, so I was like thinking, okay, how am I going to get money? And I decided personally that I was going to withdraw some money from, I have a few 401k accounts. So I was going to look at the one, and I kind of took a survey of all the accounts that I had, previous jobs. And I was looking at the performance of each different account, because some were performing a lot better. Maybe I didn't want to touch those, let those grow more. And obviously different amounts in each one, different penalty rules, just kind of different things like that. Like also maybe certain accounts were charged a certain annual fee, others were not, right? So there's, kind of some research that you can look into all of your different accounts for your 401k, if that's what you decide to do. And luckily enough, I was able to do that. And so basically, just, there is a 10% federal fee. So that goes to the federal government for withdrawing pretty much any amount if you're under the age of like 59 and a half, which I am. So I knew I had to pay a 10% fee on that amount that I was going to withdraw. In addition, you will have to likely pay whatever your particular state fee is. So you have the federal level fee and also a state level fee. And usually that's less, but you'll have to check with your exact state. And then you will also have to be paying basically like your taxes on that income that you withdraw from your 401k account. So whatever your tax bracket happens to be, you kind of tack that on. So there's a lot of fees that add up if you go with this route. And it wasn't necessarily maybe the best route or the least fee amount method, obviously, but it's what worked for me. It's what I had. And so here's a quick example, just really high level, right? So let's say you have a 401k account with $100,000 in it, which, by the way, I think would be pretty good. And then if you had that 10% federal fee, I live in Virginia, and so that state fee is 5.75, so 57.50. And then let's just presume like, a general tax bracket is not really what I am right now, but let's just say that was, 25,000. So all of those fees are going to subtract out of what you have in your 401k account. And then you'll be left with, in this example, 59,250 as your deposit that'll like go into your actual bank account. And that's the money that you really have to use and to live off of. So it's kind of like a few things you got to keep in mind, because if you think that you're going to be able to have all 100,000 to spend. That's not necessarily true. So just be careful of that. And I guess one other thing I learned in the withdrawal process is that because your 401k accounts are likely based on like the real market, like stock market and everything, um, the amount that you are calculating with one day for like your 100,000, um, that could maybe the next day be like 99,000 and some change just because of those variances in the market. So that kind of threw me for a loop because I didn't know about that. So just a heads up, those could change a little bit. There's also, if you're looking at the 401k option, this is something I did not know about, and I kind of wish I had. So I'm sharing it with you. There's also something called a 401k loan, and they're selectively available. So you'll have to check with your exact account plan. But the great thing is that unlike the full withdrawal, where you're taking that money back in your pocket, the loan is a loan. So it's actually not taxed. It's not categorized as income going into your wallet since it's a loan. It's just kind of like a temporary thing. And there could be interest on the loan, like kind of in normal loans. There's usually some type of interest. Sometimes there is, sometimes there's not. You'll have to check. And then, obviously, if you take the money as a loan from your account, but you don't put it back, in time or based on whatever calendar terms that you have, you will likely be facing some type of fee. I see that the 10% is a common number. So, you do have to be careful, but that was an option that I wish I had known about. I might have done that. And then obviously, if you have savings or you have other, sources of money, that's wonderful. But this is just what I did. So I'll share that with you. And obviously, these are kind of strange times, and as such, so COVID has also affected the rules and guidance behind 401k withdrawals. And so there are sort of a continuation of guidance slash modified rules that are kind of in the works. I just checked with some folks recently, and there's still no final guidance out as of right now of this recording on this sort of like forgiveness, if you will, for taking out a 401k withdrawal. So basically, that would, as far as I can tell, would sort of forgive that 10% federal fee. And then who knows, maybe the states will also do some things. So we're not really sure, but there is something kind of in the works there. So it's something to think about. And so I'm going to pause just really quickly because I know it's a lot of information on the 401ks. And then, so the next sort of like part of money is not only money going in, but money going out. And I think a lot of people are really curious about, how much would it cost to do your own thing? Or, maybe even in the beginning or total, right? And so that was something that I couldn't find on the internet at all. It was really frustrating. And I just really hoped that I had enough money to live off of and to pay whatever I'm going to need to pay. So I'm going to share with you all my, my information on what it cost me. Hopefully that can give you guys some type of ballpark for the same types of things. So let's look at money going out, because you're going to want to think about this before you really, before you really press any buttons and press enter and take out money and quit your job if you're doing that. So kind of do some pre-planning here. What are the finances that you need to live off of for your own personal reasons, like your housing or your utilities and bills, savings. If you have any sort of like monthly subscriptions that are auto paid, right? I donate to charity quite frequently, so that's something I like to also include, and obviously your own taxes. And then also on the business side of things, so and we'll get more into this whole column for the business, so hang on for that. But just sort of like an overview, you'll see that there are filing and formation fees, services that you might need, hardware, software, general supplies, labor, like your own work, Again, charity, if that's something that you want to do with your organization, and of course, taxes. So, yes, more on the business stuff later, or actually really soon, but just kind of an overview. So, let's look at your money situation. How are you going to get money? How are you going to spend money? And then the next sort of like big thing that you should probably think about is your timing. So for me, as I said, I was employed, and then I actually, painfully resigned from that position to focus on my own health and bouncing back. So for me, I kind of had to really think about the timing very carefully, and you're going to want to plan out like when is the best time to leave, if there is a best time. I finished a huge project for my organization, and wrapped that completely up before I pulled the trigger, so to speak. And I just felt like that was the right thing to do for me. And you also might want to consider like, do you have a goal of when you want to begin your actual work for clients, as well as timing for finances, right? Like, if depending upon your money situation, you might really need to start sooner than later or something like that. So, um, you're going to want to also just kind of think related to timing about your goals as it pertains to time. So like, when would you like to make your announcement, at least to your network, or who, it could be your friends or your family, or it could be to the public, right? When are you going to want to announce? When do you want to have your first client solidified and the contract signed? And then also, again, financially, when do you need to have money coming in? Because that will also play a role in the timing. Um, let's also touch on the third aspect that you're going to want to think about potentially if you're also in a similar situation, which is the leaving aspect. And so, as I mentioned, for me, I had quit a job, and then I had some time to heal, and then I was going to start on this journey to make my own company. Um, so let's dive into this more. So, like contracts, really. For me and for a lot of other folks out there who have employment contracts, and this is nothing like specifically to what I had, but just in general, this is kind of stuff that you could see. So you might see, contractual terms in your employment agreement about payments, pay, benefits, non-competition, non-disclosure, ownership of discoveries, and maybe even governing law, which basically just says where, which state does your contract kind of like, which state does your contract follow the laws of? If you were looking at it in a legal way, it would be pertaining to how, let's say, Texas looks at those laws, opposed to a different contract that was kind of like written for governing law in like Alabama, would be different legal laws as it pertains to the contract. So you might see those things too. And I guess, the one thing I would really recommend is that you do consider getting an attorney to help look through your contract and your agreement. And especially just so you can understand any things that are binding that you have to consider, like a lot of the non competition, non disclosure, that kind of stuff. That will be, anywhere from 6 to 24 months that you're binded to that. And so that is a very serious thing that you should, abide by. Obviously, you're contractually supposed to, and you're going to just want to understand also, like potentially for your business, what can you do, what can you not do, and just kind of like get clarity on any gray areas that might exist. So in a lot of cases, maybe there's no really, there's no reason for concern. You're doing something totally different, or you're providing a different service, right? So, but I think it's a good thing to gain clarity on, and I would highly recommend that anyone do that. For me, it was a great investment for me to seek my own legal counsel. And so, for example, like if my contract were written governing law in Nevada, I would have sought out an employment lawyer who was able to practice in that state of Nevada, right? So you're going to want to match whatever your contract says. Um, so that's probably, very important step that I would recommend, in addition to the money situation, the timing situation, and then your sort of like legal situation, right? So I told you we would go back into the business expenses. And so that's what I'm going to do for you right now. And then sort of at the end, you'll be able to see, feel free to take a screenshot or whatever, what we're dealing with here. So first thing, filing and formation costs. So, just so you know, a lot of people get a little bit worried about like, oh, what should I call my business? And actually, you can change the name of your business at any time. It's like a $10 fee to do that. It's really not a big deal. So don't freak out too much about that and like get caught up on that. Really, there's a simple little form you can file. It's like, I think it's $10. So don't worry, you can just call it, Allie's cool business and change it later. Like it's really fine. Don't let that stop you. And there's a lot of confusion and a lot of, I would say, conflicting opinions, especially on the internet of, how should you file, what state should you file? And what several professionals have told me is that it's actually, not really worth it for a small business that is likely going to remain a small, medium business to file in one of those friendly states, like everyone always says, Delaware or Nevada, or there's a couple other ones that are like popular. So really the whole scenario behind that is, it's only really helpful if your company eventually is like going to go public or have stock, or be an actual corporation. Those protections may at times help those types of companies. But for myself, I knew I wasn't going to do that. Just little old me, maybe some employees eventually or something like that. So everyone said, no, just file, somewhere that's convenient to you, like where you live. So just something to also consider. There's LegalZoom, services like that can help you through the filing formation process for your business. The one thing that I had found out was that, especially, sorry, LegalZoom, but I had heard that, some of the services that they bundled in were not actually necessary for what you need to do. And then actually kind of negatively, sometimes you have to undo paperwork that was unnecessary in the beginning and undo that. And that can be, costly time and money. So I was kind of a little bit wary about that once I found that out. So I decided to go with a friend that I knew and an accounting firm that provided those business formation services. And that was there was a lot of trust there and a lot of personal relationships there. So that was really great. Also, just real quick on tax classifications, because this is something that's really important to, the tax part of your business. There's the sole proprietorship, and that's really so like your taxes with the business are basically considered like just whatever your personal tax situation is. There's like not really a distinguishing factor there. So that's what a sole proprietorship is in terms of the tax classifications. The S Corp is basically like you'll see this word pass through, which basically means that if you have your business taxes over here, and then you have your personal taxes over here in an S Corp tax classification, your business taxes pass through your personal tax like bracket or situation. So they're separate, but when it comes down to it, the business tax situation just goes through to whatever your personal situation happens to be at that time. There's also, kind of on a larger scale, there's the C Corp and, partnership tax classifications, which, I wasn't involved with. But that's basically like a C Corp would be you're taxed on your business stuff, plus you're also, taxed on your personal stuff. So instead of the pass through where you're kind of like benefiting because you're only being taxed on like one situation because it passes through, you would be taxed on both. So And then again, for the sole proprietorship, there's really not even two, it's just one. So hopefully that makes sense. Feel free to, chat in any questions on that. Um, let's see. And then just so you know, so an LLC, limited liability corporation, it's actually not a tax classification in and of itself. It's a type of business. And so if you decide to, make an LLC like I did, you will also have to choose what type of tax classification you would like, because it's not inherently one already. So you'll kind of, do both things. So that was interesting. I didn't know that. So I had chosen the S Corp, the pass through, to complement my LLC business status. Also, so this is kind of like some really good checklist stuff for you. And then hopefully when you're able to, receive a copy of this presentation, or you can DM me or chat me, I do have embedded links to these actual forms and resources in here. Again, they might have changed or been updated, but you'll be able to get a good sense for what's involved. So for me, I wanted to, protect my privacy and my personal information. So I decided to get a virtual business address so that I wouldn't have to put my home address on any of these forms, that some of them are public, some of them aren't. And so that's something to consider, especially if you're in, security. And then in order to do that, you'll have to sort of like allow that business to be able to take in your mail. So there's a little form from the USPS that you'll have to do. I think it's free to file, but you do have to like give them authorization. There's also something in the filing like process where you can hire something called a registered agent, and that person or entity will register all of your paperwork and stuff on your behalf with their personal or their professional information, so that you wouldn't have to file these official paperworks with your home address and your cell phone and things like that. So those are two nice services that are totally optional, but I decided to spring for those just to protect my own information. You'll have to get your employer identification number, which is, a pretty simple process, but there's a form for that. You'll have to file your articles of organization, which again is kind of, specific to an LLC situation. You'll have to file, if you're going to sort of go about business with a different name than what you're going to put in the paperwork. So that's like doing business as DBA. You'll have to do that little form. And I think that's the one that's $10. And then you'll also have to let the government know what type of tax classification you actually want to be, seen as. So there's a little form they have to fill out for that. So for me, it's S Corp form. And then I live, this is bad OPSEC, but I live in Arlington, Virginia. And so Arlington County or Arlington City also has like a little process that you have to go through to just sort of get your license, your certificate of occupancy, et cetera. So that was pretty easy to do. I don't think it cost me anything, just a little bit of time. And again, the blue ones are all totally optional, but ones that, may be recommended for your situation. And these are the costs, right? So this should be hopefully really helpful. For me, you can see 60 to 100 monthly fee for having that virtual business address, so I can use their address for everything, their services. Registered agent, that was a one-time fee. And you can see some of the filing paper fees that go along with that. Okay. And then, this presentation is actually worth at least $450 because that's what I paid some professionals to help me through this process. So you're welcome. Okay. So we talked already about the expenses, sort of money going out, and just want to quickly go touch on services. So for services, you might need those attorneys that I talked about. Sometimes that'll be, depending upon where you are and their experience level, 150 to 250 plus an hour, kind of pricey. So you just want to kind of, budget for that. If you have accountants and payroll folks, which I would highly recommend you get because I'm not a tax professional, I don't want to mess that stuff up. They range from like $50 for sort of the admin help to upwards of $200 if you're getting like the top person out there. For filing assistance, again, I told you that I had used that accounting firm because they offered that as a service, and I think that was actually the 450 that I just told you about. You'll also want to consider your business insurance. So don't forget this. There's largely three types of just like baseline insurance. When you get into more specified types of work and services and products, you'll have additional different like specific types. But in general, you'll have your general insurance, your data breach insurance, which we should all be semi-familiar with what that is, and also your professional insurance. And so annually, that can range depending upon your providers. I went through my sort of auto insurance provider, and they were able to hook me up with a really good insurance provider that they work with to get all of this business insurance at a really good rate. So that was also a good tip to maybe kind of ping who you already use and see if you can get a good deal on that. If you have any questions about the insurance stuff, happy to chat about it. There's some distinctions between those. Obviously, if there's any technical or security services, luckily I'm able to tap some friends that I have to help me. And obviously some software that you might need to run your business. I had an issue with, of course, my DNS, getting that set up for my mail client and everything. So so you'll probably need to have some type of resource for help with certain things like that if you don't already know it all yourself. And then other services, your bank and your credit card services for your business, right? Business bank, business credit card. If you're going to want to have any HR services, I actually used to work for an association that you'll see this PEO is linked, and that's a professional employer organization. And they kind of do like outsourced HR. So they're companies and they handle all your stuff. You can look into that. If you have any questions, let me know because I used to work for them. And then, marketing or administrative expenses, right? Just kind of those ancillary things. Also just be careful. There are sometimes minimum dollar amounts that you need to have in your bank account. So you avoid any, recurring business fees, like just to have the account is kind of silly, but it happens. My bank minimum was like $500, which is kind of significant. So, or else I was going to incur a $20 fee every month. So something to keep in mind. I didn't know that. Okay, really quick on hardware. Obviously, you're going to want to have some type of computer system. I ended up chatting with Dell on sort of the chat feature and had a really great experience with some of the folks over there who helped me get a custom quote on my laptop. And obviously there's a newer model available, but that was something I didn't know you could do. And it actually saved me quite a bit of money. Also took quite a bit of time. Not sure if it's because it was custom or because of the crazy times operationally, logistically, but keep that in mind too. It could take some time to get your laptop. Software, you should be familiar. Obviously, you're going to need some type of, domain host, a website, maybe your sort of email / just data organization system, right? Office 365 or Google Suite, right? There's other options, and you can kind of decide what you want to do there. If you're going to do some accounting software, something like QuickBooks, if you need professional software, like a professional LinkedIn account, that's something to consider. If you want to get the upgraded version of anything that's freemium, like a web meeting service or something like that, or if you need a creative software. So lots of stuff to consider, and especially depending upon what you actually end up doing. So this is kind of what it costs for me, which was not too bad, but something to consider for our finances. And just really quick, on labor. So basically, eventually you'll get into all of this, paying yourself a salary, and if you have other employees, your own benefits and healthcare. if you want to do a 401k program, your training budget, if you want to have that, conference attendance, headshots. I was able to get that for free because there was a program sort of within the COVID times that was really helpful. They did free headshots. So you can kind of look for things that pop up for that. Business cards, equipment, supplies, licenses. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that can come up that you can be aware of. So we're nearing the end here, and we're going to do a quick running tally. Total, hopefully, my math checks out here, but total, it took me about $4,784 to start up. And that was over the course of, I think, about 8 weeks, because I took it very slow, as I told you. And yeah, so about 8 weeks. And so right now, fast forward, I actually have two companies, the one that I started, and then I joined another small business and I'm a partner for that. I have clients right now. I have lots of good things going on. And I am one happy girl. So I know that was a lot of information. Please feel free to chat me or DM me anytime. I'd love to help you. I'm already helping some friends in the industry explore their own options. And that makes me really happy, because the one thing I knew before I even started any of these steps that I talked about, the one thing I knew, I said, look, if I can figure this out and get it all squared away, I'm going to take really good notes on my process and everything. And I'm going to share this with everybody, because I want everybody else to be able to have an opportunity to, work for themselves or do their own thing, or, just follow their own dream. And so I knew from the get-go that I would be sharing this with you all. And I look forward to sharing even more as I find out more steps of the journey here. So I've been in operation for, September. So I've been in operation for maybe a solid 3 or 4 months at this point in time. And I know I'm going to learn a lot more stuff as the calendar year progresses and I, incur different types of experiences. I've already learned a few other things since I made the bulk of this presentation. So maybe I'll have to keep updated on that. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to chat now or message me later. More than happy to help out with anything that I can. And I just really appreciate you all having me. And thank you to B-Sides Charlotte and all the wonderful folks running this. And I really hope that you all, show your appreciation for the immense effort that goes into this. And I hope you take care. I hope you are able to have a good rest of the year. And thank you again.